Trump and GOP senators again have put economic openings ahead of or above or ahead of, meaning giving a greater importance to, put the economic openings ahead of suppressing the virus. Now, to suppress, coming from the from above, and pressing it down. Now, it can mean a couple different things or in a couple different ways, but to suppress rebellion, to suppress some protests, to suppress revolts. You can see the way that they are using federal officers in Portland, Oregon, and other cities around the U.S. trying to suppress the protests, and usually it implies a violent sort of way. Or in this case, suppressing the virus, and so it implies bringing an end to it. However, often individuals and or governments also try to suppress information that could then be potentially damaging to their re-election or something along those lines. So it's to bring an end to push it down. If you can keep that in your mind visually, to push it down either by stomping it out, like with your feet on a fire, or to just, conquer it and defeat something, or then it could also mean to stop it from becoming public, like information that has leaked out or could possibly leak out. Cool, moving on. Fauci says that it is crunch time for vaccine development. Now, crunch time, this I think originally came from sports, but it's used quite a bit in business as well. And crunch time is just a period of intense activity where it's of critical importance, and it's usually just before the final stages of something. And thinking about it in sports, the crunch time is maybe like when you're in the last few minutes of the game and your team is behind, is losing by 1 or 2 points, and so your performance is especially important. You need to be decisive, you need to take action. In terms of business, maybe it could be at the end of Q4, trying to get those sales numbers up before the start of the new year to ensure that you get your bonuses and commissions and so on. And here, now it's crunch time for vaccine development, which means we're getting to some more final stages, but it's really time to buckle down and focus on this, because if we don't get this going and get it working, then further delay could become catastrophic. Coming from the word crunch, the sound that it makes when you eat a potato chip or some granola, or oh, that's awful, called out for something. It means to be publicly recognized and publicly basically pointed at, that you don't like their behavior or something along those lines. You're criticizing them publicly, identifying them in public as a form of criticism for their behavior. Kind of sound like a broken record there. And so let's move on. 2 months ago, this Trump ally, the person who was on his team, he's repeatedly sided with Trump regarding this whole COVID thing and countless other issues in the United States, and that's Governor Rick DeSantis of Florida. And he bragged outside the White House about how Florida had the virus under control and those liberal goofballs up in New York were doing it wrong. Well, now his state, Florida, is the COVID-19 epicenter. As you know, they were averaging over 70,000, or no, sorry. That was all of the U.S. Over 70,000 cases per day, but Florida was at over 10,000 cases per day for like a week. Pretty awful situation. But to brag is to speak loudly and proudly about yourself. Oh, I'm the best and we're the best. And so it's to speak proudly and too proudly, really, in public, to try and make yourself sound more important or better. Usually bragging itself has the reverse effect than what you intended, because people see through it as being shallow and usually taking place due to your own lack of confidence. Yeah, bragging, never a very good idea. Moving on to some words to describe numbers. I've not seen any sort of data that shows this. However, yes, it was going up and up and up, and then if it levels off and it starts to go flat like that, that is to plateau. Just like out in Arizona and New Mexico, you see those mesa where it goes up and then it's flat on top. That is a plateau, a flat area of land that is of higher elevation. You could also hear about the Tibetan plateau. Yeah, but so to plateau means that instead of continuing an upward trajectory, it has leveled off and it's remaining at a constant level as you move forward. Nice, good visual vocabulary for describing graphs, basically. Yeah, wonderful. That means they were shooting at each other because you fire a gun, fire weapons. And so they were exchanging fire. They're shooting at each other with Hezbollah in a thwarted attack near the Lebanese border to thwart somebody's attack, to thwart somebody's plan, which means cause it to stop, cause it to fail, put an end to it. Much like COVID-19, this pandemic has thwarted pretty much everybody's plans for the summer, for travel, for celebrating, for, well, pretty much everything. I mean, it is a phrasal verb here, but it's used quite literally here. And the U.S. ambassador to South Korea shaves off his controversial mustache. Now, I don't know what sort of mustache he had. It probably wasn't like a little Hitler mustache or something, but he has literally shaved it off. It no longer exists on his face. It is gone. Because when you shave, you're just taking off that first layer, that little bit of hair there that exists. And so we can use shave off for other things as well, meaning slight reductions. Now, I'm not seriously overweight, but I could stand to shave off a few pounds or a kilo or two here and there. I need to shave a little bit of money off of the marketing budget and reallocate it over to blah blah blah, to just remove a fine little bit of something. Yes, often to get rid of it or to reallocate it, to redeploy it into a different area, just to try and keep recycling vocabulary. He won't say if it came up as a topic of conversation. If something arises or comes up, it comes into existence, comes into view, and therefore it should be addressed and spoken about. Yeah. HSBC denies colluding to frame Huawei as China ups the pressure. Now, starting at the back here, to up the pressure just means to increase. Yeah, we've had it countless times on the show, which is funny to me always as well, because pressure implies downward. They're putting more weight on them, and so they're upping the pressure. Nah, they're just increasing the amount of pressure that is being put on HSBC. And they're like, you did it, and HSBC is like, no, we didn't. And what do they claim that they didn't do? They didn't collude. And to collude is to cooperate in a secret or illegal way to try and trick or deceive somebody to some sort of illicit gain that might not be morally, ethically, or legally. And so colluding with the enemy or with someone else to do something illegal or wrong, and that was to frame Huawei, frame somebody. Notice they've got the quotes there. It's a term from crime, and it's to put a frame around somebody, to put them in the picture, to make it look as though they are guilty when they are in fact innocent. Often so that other person will have to take the blame for the crime, and then you can get away free. Let's move on. Melania Trump is to renovate the Rose Garden. It's to redo something, make it look better, nicer, because often it has fallen into disrepair. It is dilapidated, or maybe it just needs to be modernized because maybe the things are sort of out of fashion. What's the need? The Rose Garden is the Rose Garden, and there's a good chance that she's going to be not living there anymore in approximately 5 months. And so I don't see any concrete need to do that. But hey, if you want to waste some more taxpayer money, by all means, to spark the things that cause something else to happen, to ignite the fires of passion, the fires of discontent, of anger. Now, in this case, it's a virtual walkout. A walkout is a form of protest where everybody literally gets up and walks out. It could be out of school, it could be out of a factory, it could be out of their office buildings, etc. And this is a virtual walkout. And since nobody's actually in the office, maybe everybody just logged out of their systems and shut down the computers as a form of protest against something or someone. I haven't read it, probably aren't going to. If you do read about it, let me know. I am interested, I am curious. Easy peasy here. Lewis Hamilton clarifies an anti-vaccine post. To clarify, coming from the adjective clear, right? Clear, to clarify. If you clarify something, means to make it clear. We've got the if-I to make it that adjective. To clarify, to give it clarity as a noun. to shed light on it in order to give it clarity so that we know exactly what he meant. Maybe he's not really an anti-vax. Who knows? I don't know. But yes, often if we say things that maybe somebody else misunderstood or they took it the wrong way, then we need to rephrase what we have said in order to clarify our message, in order to fix any of that misunderstanding. Okay, moving on. 700 people packed into a house party in New Jersey. That's a lot of people. I don't know how big that house is, but it must have been either like sardines in a can, literally packed in there, or it was a really big house. I don't know. And it took please 5 hours to break it up, to break up the party. That is one hell of a party. But to break something up, just like very similar to break something down, it means into smaller pieces. Actually, like with any phrasal verbs, there are quite a few different meanings to this, and it really depends on the context. But to break it up means, yes, into smaller pieces so that the crowd would then disperse and go home and probably go back to spreading COVID around the rest of their communities, unfortunately. Don't go to packed house parties, you idiots. This is interesting. I had to read it a few times, but they're looking for volunteers, people to volunteer themselves, their bodies, to become infected with COVID so that then the scientists can test their various vaccines. It seems a bit risky, but I'm sure there's quite a few people out there who would be up for it. And that could speed up the race for the vaccine. To speed it up means to increase the velocity, or then more formally, to accelerate. But yes, you know, we love phrasal verbs, and so we say speed up. To exhibit something, much like in a museum, in the museum you look at the exhibits because the museum is exhibiting these items or these pieces of art or whatever, and it just really means to show. And so this person, turns out she was an actress, I guess. She exhibited, she demonstrated, she showed in her daily life, and my nose is itching, pardon me, sorry. Showed in her life both grit and grace. And now it sounds really nice together because we got the two G's, some nice alliteration. But then as well, grit is when you grit your teeth, you hold them together tightly like that. Yeah, to grit your teeth. And so when you're gritting your teeth like that, when do you grit your teeth? Typically when you're doing something very, very difficult. And so while doing something very difficult, if you're showing grit, if you are gritting your teeth, if you're showing your grit, it shows that you are tenacious. You will not give up. You are determined. You are persistent. In the face of all adversity and all difficulty, you might suffer setbacks and everything, but you do not give up. You will just keep moving forward to obtain your goal. And that is to show grit, or to have grit. But she also showed at the same time grace. And grace is a fluidity of movement. It's very smooth and pleasant to watch, much like a dancer, a ballerina, right? But then we can also have grace in our daily life. Basically means that you're very polite and you'll be able to behave in a way that is very pleasant and acceptable. And so here it's talking about that sort of determination, but at the same time with a grace, being able to do it in a very fine and dignified manner. Now, she was a Hollywood actress back in the day, and so yes, due to sexism, women in the industry faced a lot of challenges and difficulties, and so she was apparently able to have a very successful career and do so without really offending anybody or something. That's what the headlines lead me to believe. I might just be jumping to conclusions or making wild and irresponsible assumptions. If you read it, let me know. Yeah, cheers. But grit and grace, it's a nice juxtaposition of those two sort of ideas and feelings that are attached to them. They're implying that there's some secret message and some symbolism, something that's below the surface, and there's more to it. You need to maybe read between the lines, or yes, decode the symbolism, I don't know, whatever. To encode and then to decode. Moving on. Laundromat owners go viral modeling left behind clothes because some people either by accident or on purpose forget and leave behind clothes in the laundromat. That's the coin-operated place to wash your clothes if you don't have a washing machine at home. Yeah, and so they're going for their lost and found bin and then modeling those clothes, I guess. But to be left behind, yeah, it didn't come along, it didn't come with you. Or like in movies when they're walking through the desert and then one person collapses. Everyone was moving forward and then he was getting slower and slower. He was falling behind as they move forward, and then he finally collapses and they look back at him and he says, go on without me. I can't keep up with you. Leave me behind and save yourselves. Say, no, Johnny, I won't do it. I won't leave you behind. No, save yourself. All right, moving on. Yes, and so they left the person behind to die in the desert and have his bones be picked clean by vultures. All right, artifacts. Ancient things from the past. Ancient Roman artifacts were or have been discovered by police in a Spanish seafood store. Very interesting. Yes, from the picture I saw, it was Roman amphorae, those standardized big jugs that they use for transporting wine and olive oil and even grain and other things, that harbors around the Mediterranean are littered with the broken remains of amphorae. But yeah, they had some in a seafood store. Now, was that by accident or was that some sort of weird smuggling operation? Who knows? But considering it was discovered by the police, something leads me to believe there was some illicit activity going on and maybe some black market underground smuggling of artifacts. Who knows? Read the story. Let me know. And last but not least, really, not even about the language here, but stunning means shocking. You're just like, mesmerized, transfixed, looking at these pictures, because the Hubble telescope captured a very clear image of summertime on Saturn. But right now it is summertime, and you can see several planets out there aligned. I know in North America, you can see 6 out of 7 planets in the sky with the naked eye. Now, of course, it could be aided with binoculars or anything. It's going to be that much easier. But I know sitting in my front yard at night, we can see Jupiter and Saturn just shining bright as can be, watching them rise after sunset and then move up around past our house, and it really is something to see. And so if you get the chance, especially at night, there's less people out, it's a bit safer, get out of the city into the countryside and check it out, because the sky and the stars are beautiful. And so with that being said, once again, I'd like to say happy anniversary to my beautiful wife. Thanks for making all this possible. This was Breaking Down the News. Thank you to anyone and everybody for tuning in. If you like the show, please click like, subscribe, follow on any and all of the platforms, and pass us along to a friend. And, well, if I don't see you sooner, 8 a.m. tomorrow. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Yes. Bye-bye. Nah, stop the stream.